I found an old diary in my attic. Now I'm terrified. It started with a creak. I was up in the attic searching for my grandma's old quilt when I stepped on a loose floorboard. It groaned under my weight, revealing a small gap beneath it. Curious, I pried the board up and found a dusty, leather-bound book tucked inside the hidden space. It was a diary. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed. I flipped to the first entry, dated October 3rd, 1947. He watches me from the shadows. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but every night I hear the whispers. They come from the attic. A chill crawled up my spine. I glanced around the dim attic, the single flickering light bulb casting eerie shadows. I turned the page. I told Mother, but she doesn't believe me. She says it's the wind, but the wind doesn't whisper my name. I swallowed hard. The handwriting was neat but shaky, as if the writer was afraid. As I skimmed through the diary, the entries grew darker. The unknown writer, someone named Elanor, described nights of terror. Scratching sounds, murmured words in a language she didn't understand. And then, a horrifying entry. Tonight he spoke to me. Not a whisper this time. A voice, it said, "You shouldn't be here." I slammed the book shut. My hands were trembling. Who was Elanor? What happened to her? I had never heard of anyone by that name living in this house. And then, I heard it. A whisper. A cold breath against my ear. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around. Nothing. Just the dusty trunks and forgotten relics of the past. But the attic suddenly felt smaller, darker. Desperate for answers, I flipped to the last entry. The ink was smudged, the words frantic. I understand now. He doesn't want me to leave. He needs me here. He feeds on fear. The more afraid I am, the stronger he becomes. I hear him breathing behind me. If anyone finds this, run. A shadow flickered in the corner of my vision. I wasn't alone. I dropped the diary and bolted for the attic door. My pulse pounded as I reached for the handle. Slam! The door shut on its own, and behind me, in the darkness, something whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I froze. My breath came in shallow gasps as the attic's air thickened, pressing against my chest like an unseen force. My fingers fumbled for the doorknob, slick with sweat. The diary lay open on the floor behind me, its yellowed pages fluttering as if unseen hands were flipping through them. Then, the whispers began again. Low, guttural, almost hungry. "You shouldn't be here." A cold shiver ran down my spine. The voice was closer now, right behind me. I turned, my body moving in slow, reluctant motion. The single flickering light bulb above me cast long shadows across the attic. And then, I saw it. In the farthest corner, beyond the old trunks and forgotten furniture, a shape unfolded from the darkness. At first, it looked like a shadow, stretching unnaturally tall, its form shifting as if it weren't bound by the rules of this world. Then, two hollow eyes, black as the void, locked onto mine. A grin, too wide for any human mouth, curled across its face. And it spoke. "Elanor, you came back." My breath hitched. It thought I was Elanor. "No," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I'm not Elanor." The thing tilted its head, as if considering my words. The air grew even colder, and I felt something brush against my arm, though nothing was there. "You read the words? You opened the door. Now you stay." The attic floor beneath me groaned. No, not the floor. The house itself. It was reacting, almost breathing. I had to get out. I lunged for the door, twisting the handle with every ounce of strength I had. It wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, filling the attic like a chorus of unseen voices. My heart hammered. My fingers scrambled for anything to defend myself. And then I saw it. In the pile of junk near my feet, a mirror, Old, dusty, but still intact. A reflection. My gut twisted. If horror movies had taught me anything, it was that these things, whatever they were, hated their own reflection. Grabbing the mirror with shaking hands, I turned it toward the thing in the shadows. A sound like glass shattering, like 1,000 voices crying out at once. The attic shook, the light bulb bursting in a spray of sparks. I felt a force, a presence, ripping away from me. And then silence. The door creaked open. I didn't waste a second. I ran, nearly tumbling down the attic steps. The house felt different now. Lighter. Empty. But as I reached the bottom, I made the mistake of looking at the mirror in my hands. And in the reflection behind me, 2 hollow black eyes stared back. The whisper was barely audible, but I heard it. Not yet. The mirror cracked, and the attic door slammed shut. The mirror cracked, a jagged web spreading across the glass. My breath hitched. I could still see it. Those black, hollow eyes, watching me from behind my reflection. Then, the final snap. The mirror shattered in my hands. Shards rained to the floor, some slicing into my palms, but I barely felt it. My eyes were locked on the attic door at the top of the stairs. It was sealed shut again. No gust of wind. No movement. Just the heavy, suffocating presence of something watching me. I wasn't safe. I stumbled backward, my heart beat like thunder in my ears. I needed answers. Who was Elanor? What was that thing? Why did it think I was her? I grabbed the diary from the floor and ran downstairs to the kitchen, my hands still shaking. The house was eerily silent. No ticking clock. No hum of the fridge. Just nothing. I forced myself to focus, flipping through the pages until I found the second-to-last entry. I see him in the mirror now. He doesn't like to be seen, but he's always there. Watching. Waiting. I think he's getting stronger. Every night he's closer. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have written about him. He doesn't want to be remembered. My breath caught in my throat. I had written about him. I had read her words. Had I brought him back? A sharp creak sounded from upstairs. I snapped my head up. The attic door. It was opening again. No. I grabbed my car keys. I had to leave. I bolted for the front door, yanking it open, only to be met with a wall of blackness. Not night. Not darkness. Nothingness. It stretched beyond my front porch, swallowing the world outside. My street, my car, the trees. Gone. I wasn't in my house anymore. I was inside it. Inside him. A whisper slithered into my ear, soft, teasing. You shouldn't be here. Something brushed against my neck. I turned and ran. The house was shifting around me. Hallways stretching too long, doors leading to places they shouldn't. The windows no longer showed the outside world. I made it to my bedroom and slammed the door shut. My breaths came in ragged gasps. Then I noticed it. The mirror on my wall. The reflection wasn't mine. It was Eleanor's. A girl with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks. She was mouthing something, her lips forming silent words. I didn't understand, until the whisper came. You let him out. Tears pricked my eyes. What do I do? I whispered. Eleanor's expression twisted in terror. I saw it then. The shadow behind me, growing, stretching, reaching. Then, the lights went out, and the whisper became a laugh. Darkness swallowed me whole. Not just the room, not just the house. Me. The air turned dense, thick as tar, pressing against my chest. I couldn't see. Couldn't breathe. The whispering was everywhere now, crawling under my skin, slithering into my ears. You let me out. Now I let you in. I felt something. Cold, skeletal fingers grazing my shoulder. I screamed and thrashed blindly, stumbling backward until my spine hit the mirror. The glass was ice cold, almost burning. Then a hand burst from the reflection. Elanor. Her fingers latched onto my wrist, her grip strong. desperate. Her eyes were wild, pleading. Come with me. Before he takes you. I didn't hesitate. The moment our hands touched, I was yanked into the mirror. Inside the reflection, I landed hard on a dusty wooden floor. The air smelled like mildew, and the dim glow of candlelight flickered against the walls. It was the attic, but not mine. This place was different. Wrong. The walls seemed too narrow, as if they were pressing inward. The shadows flickered unnaturally, moving when the candlelight didn't. Elanor crouched beside me, her expression frantic. She looked exactly as I had seen her in the mirror. Hollow eyes, gaunt face, her once white nightgown now gray with dust. We don't have much time, she whispered. I swallowed, my throat dry. Where are we? Eleanor's gaze flickered to the darkness behind me. I didn't dare look. This is where he keeps them, she murmured. The ones who get trapped, the ones who let him out. A sickening realization hit me. The diary, you wrote it because you were trapped here. She nodded. And now you are too. A deep, inhuman growl rumbled through the attic. Elanor grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward a wooden trapdoor in the floor. We have to go. Now. The shadows surged forward. We dove through the trapdoor just as something lunged at us. The house beneath the house. We landed in a long, narrow hallway. The air here was suffocating, filled with the faint sound of muffled screams. I turned to Elanor, my pulse hammering. How do we get out? Her eyes darkened. You don't escape. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? She took a step closer. Not unless you trap someone else. The whispering grew louder. I stumbled back. No, I'm not doing that. Eleanor's face twisted in pain. That's how I survived. That's how I lasted this long. Someone has to take your place. Suddenly, the walls shuddered, as if the house itself was reacting. The shadows around us grew teeth, jagged, twisting maws grinning in the dark. Choose. The voice wasn't Eleanor's. I turned, and I saw him, the Shadow Man. His black eyes gleamed, his grin impossibly wide. He towered over us, his long fingers curling. One stays. One leaves. I gasped, turning back to Elanor, but she was already backing away. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she ran. The shadows closed in around me. I could feel them wrapping around my ankles, pulling me down. Choose, the voice hissed. I thought of everything. My home, my life, the diary that led me here, the trap. I wasn't going to be part of it. I wouldn't be the next Elanor. I took a deep, shaking breath. And then I lunged for the trapdoor and pulled it open. The darkness rushed at me. I fell, falling until I hit something solid. Back home? Or not? I gasped for air, jerking upright. I was back in my room. The mirror on my wall was cracked but whole. The diary lay on my nightstand, its pages shut. For a moment, I just sat there, shaking. Had it worked? Was I free? Then, a whisper. You shouldn't be here. My reflection didn't move. And behind me, the attic door creaked open. My reflection didn't move. I stared at it, my breath shallow, heart pounding. The cracked mirror showed me, but not me. The other version of myself just stood there, staring back with empty black eyes. Then, it smiled. Creak. The attic door swung fully open behind me. Cold air rushed into the room, bringing the familiar scent of dust and something else. Rotting wood. Or rotting flesh. I turned toward the door, my pulse hammering. I knew what was waiting inside. I knew what he wanted. One stays. One leaves. I had escaped. Or had I? The wrong side of the mirror, I turned back to the mirror, to my reflection. It was still grinning. Then slowly it lifted its hand and waved. I stumbled backward. No. I reached out, desperate to touch the glass to make sure it was just a trick of my mind. But the moment my fingers met the surface, my reflection's hand grabbed mine. I couldn't move. The glass was no longer solid. It was cold, sticky, like a black bottomless void sucking me in. I thrashed, tried to pull away, but my reflection only smiled wider. Then it spoke. "You left the wrong one behind." With a final terrifying yank, it pulled me through. Inside the mirror, I hit the ground with a sickening thud. Dust exploded around me as I coughed and scrambled to my feet. My body felt heavy, sluggish, like I was moving through water. Then I looked around. I was back in the attic. But something was wrong. The air was thick with shadows. The walls pulsed as if alive, veins of blackness spreading across the wooden panels. The single flickering light bulb swayed, casting twisted, unnatural shadows. And then I saw him. Standing in the corner, his long fingers twitching, his hollow, endless black eyes locked onto me. Back so soon? I staggered back, my mind screaming for me to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then I heard something. A voice. My voice. It was coming from the mirror. I spun toward it. Through the cracked glass, I saw her. My reflection. Mr. She stood in my bedroom, turning slowly toward the door. She was in my world now. She smiled at me. Then, without hesitation, she walked away, leaving me trapped. I screamed, slamming my fists against the mirror. "No, let me out." The thing in the attic just laughed. One stays, one leaves. And then the light went out. I stood in the attic, or what was left of it. The walls pulsed like a living thing, shadows shifting unnaturally around me. The air was thick and stale, like it hadn't been breathed in decades. And then, that voice. His voice. One stays, one leaves. I turned slowly. He was closer now. The shadow man loomed in the corner, his too wide grin stretching unnaturally across his face. His long fingers twitched as if waiting. I wasn't going to wait for him to make his move. I lunged for the mirror, my fingers clawing at the glass. "Let me out!" I screamed. Through the fractured surface, I saw her, the other me, walking through my house. My bedroom. My hallway. My world. I slammed my fists against the mirror. "Stop! You can't do this." She turned, slowly, and smiled. Then she reached for something. The diary. My stomach dropped. She flipped to the last page, pulled out a pen, and wrote something down. I backed away from the mirror. "Number no, 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 no." Then she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." And she slammed the diary shut. The mirror sealed. The second she closed the book, I felt it. A shift. The air around me collapsed like a door had been shut, a lock clicking into place. The mirror's surface shimmered, then solidified completely. I was trapped. Panic surged through me. I turned to face the shadow man, my breath coming in ragged gasps. He was still there, still watching, still grinning. "You did this," I whispered. His smile never faltered. I always do. My knees nearly buckled. "Number, there has to be a way out." His head tilted. "There is." Hope flared in my chest. "How?" He took a step closer, the air around him shifting, warping. "One stays." He leaned in, his voice slithering against my ear. "One leaves." The new trap. I stumbled back, my mind racing. That was how Elanor had stayed alive all these years. She trapped someone else in her place. I wasn't going to make that choice. I turned to the attic door. Maybe if I ran, maybe if I found another way. But the door was gone. The walls stretched, twisting like melted wax. There was no way out. Unless... I clenched my fists. I had to write my way out. I spun around searching, and there, on the floor, lay a dusty, half-broken pencil. I lunged for it. The shadow man hissed, his grin faltering. He took a step forward. I grabbed the pencil, my fingers shaking, and ripped open the diary. I wrote. I woke up in my bed. The mirror was normal. The diary was gone. Everything was okay. I felt it immediately. The attic trembled, the air shifting again. The shadows around me thinned. The shadow man snarled. I kept writing. I never found the diary. I never read it. The attic was empty. Nothing was waiting for me there. The mirror was just a mirror. The room shook violently, the shadows peeling away like dead skin. The shadow man reached for me, but I kept writing, faster, harder, desperate. I was safe. I was free. The attic collapsed. I woke up, gasping, sweating, back in my bed. The mirror was whole. The diary was gone. And the attic door? Closed. I sat up, my heart hammering. It had worked. I had rewritten reality. I was free. Or so I thought. The final whisper. As I stood up, something caught my eye. On my nightstand, where the diary used to be, was something new. A small, broken shard of glass. From the mirror. And when I picked it up, I saw something inside it. Not my reflection. Not the attic. Something waiting. Something still watching. Then, a whisper. You shouldn't be here. The end? The whisper slid into my ears like a breath against my skin. You shouldn't be here. I froze, the shard of glass trembling in my hand. Inside it, behind the reflection, I saw movement. A shadow. Number I had ended this. I had rewritten reality. I was free. Wasn't I? The air in my room felt wrong, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Then, the shard in my palm grew colder. A thin crack split through the glass. A whisper of laughter curled from inside it. And then, a hand. A pale, dead hand reached out from the reflection in the glass, grasping for me. The mirror never left. I dropped the shard. It hit the floor but didn't shatter. My reflection, or what should have been my reflection, stared up at me. But it wasn't me. Her skin was too pale. Her lips were stitched shut with black thread. And her eyes? Hollow, endless black. Like his. A shudder ripped down my spine. My lungs felt too tight, my body paralyzed between fight and flight. Then, she moved. Not in the glass. Behind me. A sickening breath crawled against the back of my neck. I turned too slowly. My bedroom was empty. But the mirror, the real mirror, wasn't cracked anymore. Instead, something new had appeared on its surface. A single sentence. Scratched into the glass. Let me out. The realization. A sharp pain pricked at my wrist. I gasped, clutching my arm. There, on my skin, was a single thin cut. The same words. Let me out. I stumbled back, my vision blurring. My hands were shaking so violently that I could barely breathe. I had rewritten reality, but so had he. I wasn't free. I was still in the mirror. This wasn't my world. It was his. And he was still watching. The final choice. My breath came fast, shallow. My mind screamed for me to wake up, to run, to do something. But I knew what this was. A game. A trick? He wanted me to believe I had escaped, that I was safe. So I would stop fighting. So I would accept this version of reality. One stays, one leaves. Number, I wasn't going to play his game. I lunged for the mirror. For the real mirror. If this was his world, if I was still inside the trap, then there had to be a way out. I grabbed the frame with both hands, pressing my forehead against the glass. My reflection didn't move. Let me out. I clenched my teeth. No, I whispered. You let me out. The mirror shuddered. A deep, inhuman growl rumbled through the room. Then, a hand burst through the glass. Breaking reality. The world ripped apart. The mirror shattered, its shards floating, twisting in midair. The walls rippled, shifting between my bedroom and the attic. And then I saw him. The shadow man, towering over me. His mouth split open, wider and wider, revealing an abyss of writhing, whispering voices. One stays, one leaves. His hands reached for me. I reached back, but not for him, for the diary, the one that shouldn't exist anymore. I grabbed it from the nightstand, my fingers shaking as I yanked it open to the last page. I didn't write a new story this time. I wrote a name. His name. I trapped him. A howl of rage filled the air as the shadows collapsed, the mirror's shards sucking inward. The room lurched, pulling everything toward the diary as it swallowed the darkness, the whispers. Him. Then, silence. Waking up. I gasped. I was on the floor. The mirror was broken. The diary was gone. And the attic door? Sealed. For good. I took a shaky breath, pressing my palm against my chest, feeling the rapid pounding of my heartbeat. It was over. I had won. Hadn't I? The final whisper. That night, as I lay in bed, I swore I heard something. Just a faint sound, like a whisper slithering through the cracks of the walls. One stays, one leaves, and then a soft knock at the attic door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from the attic. I wasn't asleep. I sat up in bed, my breath caught in my throat. My fingers dug into the sheets, my body frozen in place. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to believe it. But I had heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps against the attic door. I swallowed hard. Number, this isn't happening. The attic was sealed. The mirror was broken. The diary was gone. I had won. Hadn't I? But then, the whisper returned. One stays. One leaves. And the attic door unlocked itself. Something is still here. I couldn't breathe. I didn't move. But the door handle did. Click. My stomach twisted. The knob turned. Slowly, painfully, deliberately. Something was trying to get out. Number, no, no, no. I shoved my blankets aside and bolted for my bedroom door. My hand closed around the knob just as... creak. The attic door opened. A gust of air rushed down the hall, freezing cold, damp, and wrong. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming down the attic steps. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing my brain to wake up, wake up, wake up. But I wasn't dreaming. I forced myself to turn my head just a little, just enough to see a shadow, long fingers curling around the attic doorframe. My vision swam. My heart slammed against my ribs. I knew what this meant. The diary was gone. But he wasn't. The wrong one left. The footsteps stopped. The air in my room grew dense, suffocating. Then I heard it. A voice. My voice. Right behind me. You shouldn't be here. I spun around, a scream caught in my throat. The mirror, my bedroom mirror, was whole. No cracks, no scratches. But there was something inside it. Not me, her, the other me. Her lips stitched shut, her hollow black eyes staring into mine. And she was smiling. I shook my head, backing away. No, this isn't real. But my reflection moved toward the glass. And then, in a voice that sounded too much like my own, but wasn't, she whispered, One stays, one leaves. Then she pressed her hand against the glass, and my bedroom door swung open. The choice. I had seconds. I could run, or I could fight. But deep down, I knew the truth. The game wasn't over. I had rewritten reality once before. But so had he. And now, something else had left that attic. Something that wasn't me. And I had no idea how to stop it. My bedroom door swung open. The air turned thick, pressing against my skin like invisible hands. The mirror rippled. My reflection, the wrong version of me, tilted her head, her stitched mouth curling into a grin. Then, she stepped forward, through the glass. I screamed, but no sound came out. The room shattered. For a moment, everything was nothing, just an endless void of whispers and shadow. And then, I woke up, in my bed. Sunlight streamed through my window. The attic door was closed. The mirror was normal. The diary was nowhere to be seen. Everything was fine. I let out a shaky breath, pressing a hand to my chest, feeling the rapid beat of my heart. It was over. It had to be. I got up, my legs trembling, and walked to the mirror. My reflection stared back at me. I lifted my hand. She lifted hers. I smiled. She smiled. Everything was normal, until she blinked. And I didn't.